I hate my husband. What happens when the person who broke your heart insists on staying in your life, under the same roof, while you're trying to heal and raise a newborn? After being abandoned by her husband just weeks after giving birth, only to have him return uninvited, this woman finds herself battling betrayal, rage, and emotional exhaustion every single day. Her story isn't just about infidelity. It's about what happens when you're forced to coexist with the very person who shattered your trust. When someone you love walks away at your most vulnerable moment, right after childbirth, the damage cuts deeper than words can express. In this case, her husband didn't just leave temporarily or out of confusion. He left her and their 4-week-old son to be with another woman. That choice shattered the trust between them, not just as a couple, but as co-parents and partners in what was supposed to be a shared chapter of their lives. The betrayal wasn't hidden in ambiguity or silence either. The affair became painfully real when the other woman, the affair partner, reached out directly and revealed everything, confirming suspicions and eliminating any chance of denial. Imagine being freshly postpartum, sleep-deprived, healing, adjusting to motherhood, and then receiving such a message. The emotional trauma isn't just about a broken heart. It's a disruption of safety, identity, and stability, at a time when those things matter most. Yet somehow, just weeks later, he came back. He returned to the home they once shared, saying he made a mistake. No grand apology could erase what had happened, but even more frustratingly, he returned with a certain expectation that things could go back to normal, as if trust and security were things that could simply be turned back on like a light switch. But that's not how it works. His sudden reappearance wasn't a healing moment. It was a trigger. For her, every time she sees him, the betrayal echoes in the walls of their home. There is no reset button when you've been emotionally abandoned. There's no fast forward to forgiveness, especially when the pain is still fresh and you're still bleeding internally from the trauma of being left behind. What complicates it further is that he never left the house again. Legally, he has the right to be there. Emotionally, he doesn't. And that creates an unbearable tension. The person she least wants to see is now constantly in her space. There is no room to breathe, no mental distance, no sanctuary for recovery. Her identity as a mother, the experience of those first tender months with her child, is being hijacked by the emotional presence of a man who betrayed her trust. She's not just grieving a broken marriage. She's grieving the version of motherhood she imagined before everything imploded. It would be different if he left and gave her space. It would be different if he acknowledged the damage and honored her need for distance. But instead, he lingers, physically present, emotionally unaware. And for someone trying to hold herself together for the sake of her child, this is not just frustrating, it's deeply damaging. This is not a story of reconciliation. This is a story of survival, of a woman trying to reclaim her space, her peace, and her identity, while the very person who shattered it all refuses to step aside. When you live under the same roof with the person who betrayed you, boundaries become more than a request, they become a lifeline. But in her case, those boundaries have been repeatedly disrespected, even after she made her needs clear. She didn't ask for much, just space, distance, and silence, but he couldn't give her even that. Instead, he continued to insert himself into her day-to-day life with what might seem like small gestures, but to her, they felt like constant reminders of a deeper violation. Take the iced coffee, for instance. On the surface, it might look like an innocent act of kindness, a man trying to make amends. But she asked him more than once not to make it. She told him directly. It wasn't about the coffee. It was about control, about being heard, about having her wishes respected. And he still made it anyway. That kind of disregard chips away at a person's sense of autonomy. In a situation where she already feels emotionally invaded, being ignored in the small things adds insult to injury. It's not about the drink. It's about the fact that he still believes he knows better, still acts as if his opinion on what she needs holds more weight than her own. The result? She snapped. One day, filled with resentment and frustration, she threw the coffee in his face. Not because she wanted to be violent or cruel, but because the anger had been building and she felt pushed beyond her limit. Her reaction wasn't just about the moment. It was about every moment leading up to it. Every ignored request, every memory of him choosing another woman, every minute she spent holding their child alone while he was somewhere else starting a different life. And yet, when she reacted, he had the audacity to call her crazy. This is the twisted dynamic that often emerges in the aftermath of betrayal. When the person who causes the hurt starts acting like they are the victim once they're confronted with the consequences. He questioned her actions without acknowledging the context that created them. He didn't see the volcano he had helped build. He only noticed when it finally erupted. She reminded him of the reality. You left me and our newborn son to be with someone else. Now you're back, and you expect things to be okay? That's what's crazy. His comeback? A week. What can I do to make things better? The answer was simple. Stay the fuck away from me. She needed space, emotionally and physically, to process what had happened and to begin healing. Instead, she was met with a man who kept trying to fix things on his terms, not hers. In doing so, he wasn't just disregarding her needs. He was continuing the same pattern of control and dismissal that defined his betrayal in the first place. The difference now? She wasn't just heartbroken. She was angry. And that anger had nowhere to go, because the very thing she needed to escape was still living just down the hall. What makes all of this even more unbearable is that she can't find a moment of peace, not in her own home, not in her own mind. Her husband's constant presence has transformed their shared space into a battleground of unspoken tension and unresolved grief. Even though she's asked him, begged him, to give her the distance she needs, he remains, working from home, always nearby, always present in the corners of her eye and the back of her mind. And so she tries to escape, not just emotionally but physically. She leaves the house as much as she can, taking long walks with the baby, spending time with her parents, trying to breathe somewhere he isn't. But no matter how far she walks, she can't walk away from what he's done. The damage lives inside her now. His betrayal left scars that follow her everywhere, and there is no off switch for the mental noise that keeps looping the same questions. How could he do this? Why does he think any of this is repairable? Why can't he just go? Her experience of motherhood, a time that should have been tender, joyful, and grounded in love, feels hijacked. Instead of being able to focus fully on bonding with her newborn, she is constantly navigating the emotional landmines left behind by her husband's affair and sudden return. There is no room for rest when your nervous system is in survival mode. There is no softness in the early days of parenting when you are constantly clenching your teeth just to get through the next moment. It's not just that she's angry, it's that she's grieving the version of herself that believed in her marriage, grieving the dreams of raising her child in a safe and secure home, grieving the idea that her partner would be someone she could rely on in the hardest moments. Instead, the man who should have been her strongest ally became the source of her deepest pain. And now he walks the halls of their home like nothing ever happened. Even when he tries to help, like offering to watch their son so she can have some me time, it doesn't land the way he thinks it will. When she finally took him up on that offer and stepped out for a break, hoping to clear her head, she couldn't relax. Her body was out of the house, but her mind was still trapped in it. She found herself consumed with worry, not just for her baby, but for the entire situation. Could she trust him with their son? Could she trust herself to take a break? What if stepping away made her look weak, or worse, accepting? The truth is, she's not okay. She's emotionally exhausted, physically drained, and mentally caught in a loop of pain that she didn't create but is now forced to carry. Nights are the worst. That's when the silence makes everything louder. She cries often. She struggles to sleep. And though she tried therapy, it's hard to open up when you're still stuck in the trauma, still living with it, still sleeping down the hall from it. This isn't healing. This is emotional captivity disguised as coexistence. What's perhaps most disorienting in her situation is the emotional gaslighting she constantly experiences, not just from her husband, but from the situation itself. It's a form of psychological chaos. She knows she's not crazy, and yet the way he moves through the house, calmly, casually, makes her question whether he even realizes the gravity of what he's done. He left. He lived with another woman while their infant son cried through his first nights in the world, and now he acts like brewing coffee and changing diapers might somehow reverse it all. The emotional whiplash is real. One moment he's trying to play the role of the attentive father and supportive partner. The next, he's invalidating her feelings or calling her crazy for reacting. It's a manipulative cycle that forces her to doubt her own emotional responses. And because he won't leave, every day feels like another round of trying to hold her sanity in place, while her mind screams, "This is not okay." Even in therapy, this emotional instability shows up. She wants help. She wants to process. But when you're still in the middle of the storm, it's hard to describe the damage. The wounds are fresh. The betrayer is still present. And every session feels like trying to build a life raft while you're still being pulled under by the current. She's not a woman who's simply angry. She's a woman who's been emotionally ambushed. She had no time to prepare for this chapter of her life. One day she was recovering from childbirth and trying to adjust to sleepless nights with a newborn. The next, she was being told by her husband, without remorse, that he had been with someone else. And then, before she had a chance to process or grieve, he was back, not with flowers or real humility, but with an unspoken expectation. Let's just pick up where we left off. What he doesn't realize is that there's no where we left off. That version of their relationship died the moment he walked out on their family, and the person she used to be, the one who may have tolerated emotional imbalance, who might have made excuses, who hoped love would fix what pain exposed, is gone too. Now she's someone else, someone who doesn't trust easily, someone who flinches when kindness feels manipulative, someone who can't relax in her own home and can't sleep in her own bed, someone whose motherhood journey has been interrupted by betrayal, whose postpartum recovery has been poisoned by emotional intrusion. And still, the world keeps turning. She has to feed the baby, change diapers, soothe cries, manage legal logistics, and pretend, at least on the surface, that she's functioning. But underneath it all, she is quietly unraveling. The presence of her husband in the home isn't just inconvenient, it's a daily re-traumatization. And the worst part? There's no easy exit. Not legally, not emotionally, not yet. This isn't a woman in a marriage. This is a woman surviving a psychological war, with the enemy disguised as her partner. If this is a war, then she's fighting without armor, because the system meant to protect her isn't built for nuance, for betrayal, or for motherhood colliding with trauma. The cruel irony is that even after everything he's done, he still has legal rights to be in the house. That's why when she initially left with the baby to stay with her parents, it felt like a short-lived moment of relief. She could breathe, she could cry without hiding. She could begin to reclaim her sense of control. But then came the lawyer's advice. Go back home. Protect your legal standing. Don't give him the power to claim it as his space alone. So she returned, not because she was ready, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. It was a strategic move in a game she never asked to play. And since returning, she's been stuck in a constant state of psychological contradiction. On paper, she's home, but it doesn't feel like home. It feels like a holding cell, with every day spent trying to avoid a man who insists on acting like the past can be swept under a rug. He's not yelling, he's not outwardly aggressive, but his presence alone, his refusal to leave or even stay out of her way, is its own form of dominance. She's asked him, clearly, calmly, emotionally, to go. Not forever, but long enough for her to gather herself, long enough for her to breathe without his shadow looming. But he refuses, and because of that, her healing has been put on hold. Her nervous system never fully resets. She's in a constant state of fight or flight, and her baby, who deserves a peaceful, connected mother, is being raised in the presence of this unrelenting emotional tension. And still, she's blamed. People online and around her ask, "Why don't you just leave?" As if she hasn't thought about that every hour, as if she hasn't run every scenario in her head. They don't understand that sometimes leaving means losing the legal ground you need to stand on, that sometimes staying is the only way to eventually break free with your dignity and parental rights intact. So she stays, not because she wants to, but because she's playing the long game, because she knows that healing, safety, and freedom will only come when she has control over the outcome, not when she runs. And until then, she survives. She wakes up. She cares for her baby. She avoids him. She goes for walks. She leans on her parents. She cries in private. She tries to make therapy work. She documents. She reflects. She vents, just like she's doing now, because it's the only outlet she has. This isn't weakness. This is strength in its rawest, most invisible form. This is a mother refusing to be erased, a woman holding the pieces of herself together while being forced to live beside the one who broke them. And one day, when she's finally free, truly free, she'll look back at this version of herself and realize she was never powerless. She was preparing for the moment she could finally walk away and never look back.